Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and today we're continuing our Fantastic Four, just kind of all over the place binge, you could say. We've gone different eras, different, just up and down. There's no rhyme or reason to our little escapade, but I'm very excited to have Kurtis from the Epic Marvel podcast back on the show with us, talk more of FF stories. And if you haven't already, I appreciate everyone to go. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all the new subscribers we've had recently. It's pretty rad. Lots of, appreciate everyone already has. Hit the like button, all that jazz. I hate begging for this stuff, but you guys gotta do what you gotta do, right? So, whatever. And before we get started, I do also want to make sure people please go and take advantage of our awesome playlist section that we have. I started an FF playlist that Kurtis is on all of them so far. So we've got 3 episodes, and this will be 4 once we're done. So you can go back, watch other episodes. A lot of fun, tons of content with like independent, DC, Marvel, whatever. It's all over there. So go check that out if you haven't already. Appreciate everyone who's already liked the video, all that stuff. So, without further ado, Kurtis, how are you feeling today, sir?
Well, every day is a good day to talk about Fantastic Four. And so I think that today is going to be a good day. I mean, it already has been a good day. We're going to finish off this day talking about some awesome comics.
That's true. That's very true. So for those who don't know, Kurtis was so nice enough to read the Mark Miller and Brian Hitch run for me. I asked him if he would be willing to take the binge with me. He said he would. And after we were done, we talked about continuing, and he said, I let him pick this time. And he picked the J. Michael Straczynski and Mike McKone. Is it McKone or McConey? I have no idea. I want to make sure.
Pretty sure it's McKone. That's all I've always said, at least.
Fair enough. Okay. The Mike McKone era of Fantastic Four, which I have a little bit of experience with, and I'll get to that here in a second. But I'm curious, why pick this run, Kurtis? I know it seems like you like it a lot, but what about this running in a nutshell kind of appeals to you the most, you think?
So I feel like especially in the modern era of Fantastic Four, and this goes actually for every era of Fantastic Four, there are very few runs that I would actually call bad. There are some that are not as good as others. And of course, there's like the Hickman and the Burns that are way up at the top there. This is a good run. It has some weird stuff in it, and it's kind of all over the place. And we'll talk about that. And it doesn't get talked about very much, and that's kind of why I want to talk about it, because people just don't talk about it very much. So let's start the discussion and see where it goes. I think that there's a lot to love in this book. We can talk about the problems that there are in here as well, but for the most part, this is a very enjoyable run. Now this follows.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. What are your initial thoughts on this run?
Yeah, well, so for me, I had only read a portion of it, which was the Civil War stuff, and I'll show you the comic that I came in on. It's kind of cool because I returned to comics right when Civil War came out. Like I had kind of taken a break, so I was picking up trades here or there, but I went back to monthly right before Civil War happened. So like within that year, you had the Other by Spider-Man, the Planet or the pre-Planet Hulk story, which is pretty good in my opinion. I like that story a lot. So like I came in right when this run was kind of towards the tail end. So my first issue was actually this one right here, or wait, no, I'm sorry, wrong one. I got them all backwards here. I apologize. This one right here.
Yeah.
This is my first issue. So which ironically he jumped off a few issues later, but yeah, this was my first foray into Fantastic Four again. And so, so I kind of went into it right with Civil War, and I didn't stop picking it up since then. So I had not, when you told me to read this, I'm like, it'd be cool to go back and read it from the beginning, because I only started at this point here. But I remember I liked it, what I've read. I mean, we'll get into JMS in a little bit, but I guess for me, my main experience with him was Spider-Man, and I love the Spider-Man a lot. In fact, I would say that's a contributing factor for me getting back into monthly comics, was because of his run in Spider-Man was so good to me and so different than other runs. So I was very much like, I liked what I read here. So when you suggested it, I'm like, okay, let's go check it out.
Yeah, definitely. And from after this one, he jumps onto Thor, which also is a very good run as well. Quite enjoyed
Very
that
good.
one. I was reading that one for the first time actually when the Modern Era Epic collections started coming out
Oh, no
last year.
way. All right. All right. All right.
Um,
Copel. Yeah,
so
Copel
let's
and
see.
TMS. Super good.
Where do you want to start? Should we just break this up by the story arcs and kind of go one story arc at a time?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so these first 6 issues in this story, first of all, it's a great jumping on point. Um, yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to here as well. Um, so we have a very, very successful run from Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo. They came directly before this and kind of brought Fantastic Four out of the dredges that it had been in for the last couple of years. The title had been kind of going down and down. It wasn't doing too well. And then these two came on, and Marvel did a lot to promote it. They
Hmm.
did a ton of promotion. And if you remember, the first issue of that Mark Waid issue was actually only 9 cents. It was a 9 cent issue when it first came out. They were not making money on it. They just wanted to promote the heck out of Fantastic Four. They did a good job, and Mike and Mark did a very memorable run. And I believe this is the run where Mike, in the middle of it, passed away.
Oh.
And so then after that, they after they were finished with that run, they brought in J. Michael Straczynski, who had just come off of Fantastic Four. I mean, sorry, off of Amazing Spider-Man, and had been doing because of the editorial interference, he didn't want to be on that title anymore. If you remember, he was caught in the middle of the whole One More
Brand
Day
new, one more day. Yeah. Yeah.
situation. Brand new day, one more day, brand new day. Yeah, so he didn't want to be there anymore. So he jumped off and moved over here. And Fantastic Four had 2 titles going on at this time. They had this one, and then they had a Marvel Knights title that was just called
That's right.
Thor. That people call it Marvel Knights 4, and both of those titles were great. And so, right at the beginning here, it's a clean start. You don't need to know about anything that was going on in the previous issue. We we start clean, and we get a really neat story where um, Reed is brought into a government agency to work on a top secret experimental rocket that is an exact replica of the one that he made to take the original 4 into space and where they got their cosmic powers. Because apparently the all of the stars are aligned right for the cosmic storm to happen again, and so the government wants to send more people up there so they can have their own little super powered army. And Reed, when he finds that out, he's like, I don't know if I can go along with this. So that's the start of it. What I love about J. Michael Straczynski is he has big ideas, really big ideas. And we saw with Spider Man starting to unfold all of that with the spider totems and all of this kind of thing. And he does that a little bit here as well. Because this creature that you can see in this on this cover in the background, eventually he finds out that the cosmic rays were actually a communication device, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that so that this alien can converse with other races and stuff. And so Reed figures this out and starts conversing with it, and it's a wild story because it ends up taking them back to the Big Bang, the creation of the universe. And Reed actually then has something to do with the creation of the universe. It's this weird, weird thing that's going on here. This isn't a strange thing for Marvel. Marvel has had lots of stories actually where they talk about the creation of the universe, and it's a different person every time. Doctor Strange met a character called in the 70s called Sissy Neg,
Oh, that's
who was
right.
a
Yeah.
wizard. wizard who wanted to absorb all of the mystic power, mystical energy in the universe. And the further back in time he got, the more mystical energy there was because there weren't other mystics that were absorbing it. So he went back and back and back in time, eventually went back to the beginning of time. And with all of his mystic energy, he started the universe. So there's that story as well. Sissy Neg is backwards for Genesis. So it was an allusion to like he's God basically. But anyway, so this one happens at the same time. It's an amazing story, and in the midst of this massive unreal unraveling story, there's a smaller story that Sue is trying to deal with because a person comes from a government child welfare agency to say that Franklin and Valeria are in an unfit situation living in the Four Freedoms or living in the Baxter building. And so they need to be relocated. So and what I love about Straczynski is the dichotomy of these huge stories and these super personal tales. And he does that balance really, really well. What are your thoughts on this run, Paul? On this story?
So this story, and you said it best that his ideas are very, very grand. And a lot of people, I'm a hardcore Spider-Man fan, have been all my life, have been reading the title. I've read a lot of Spider-Man comics, not everyone, but I've been on a crusade to read most of them in the major continuity. And I stopped around the 90s as far as rereading and reading and whatever. So just needless to say, I'm a big Spider-Man fan. When the Totem stuff came out, I actually loved it. I thought it was really interesting and unique idea because it doesn't really to me, like the whole radioactive spider is by chance anyway. So elaborating on the spider is really interesting. I like the whole idea of the other, to be honest, but like not to an extent. It got a little too much, obviously. But when we first started reading these first issues, I thought it was genius to bring in the whole idea of we want to recreate the spaceship because we're going to be able to capture for once what made you the Fantastic Four and created for other people. And I thought it was really interesting because I thought, why haven't they done it before? It feels like the story should have been told already, like at least twice, but I don't think it has. I mean, I started thinking about when the thing turned into the Pinecone thing, was that in the same galaxy? Or was it a different? I didn't know because
it actually was, and actually that was he was bombarded with the same cosmic rays again, so that was a double dose. It wasn't the same storyline because they weren't purposely going to recreate the Fantastic Four, but he just got caught in the same similar cosmic storm.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So I figured I just kind of was thinking, well, why didn't people do this before? It feels weird to me. It's kind of like Jeff Johns and the all the different lantern colors. It feels like I should have been done like 40 years ago, but it wasn't. And it's like, why? It's just weird. Anyway, I thought it was really brilliant. It's one of those things where I'm an action guy, admittedly. If you don't have a lot of action, your story better have a lot going on that's interesting. And it kind of is the latter for this one. It's not an action-packed story. And I think the FF doesn't always have to be because it's adventure. It's an adventure tale. Adventures aren't always action-packed necessarily. It's about the mystery and discovery and yada yada yada. So it feels a lot like that. And I really appreciated how he was able to unfold the story and I will say this. In a world that we live in, Curtis, where Reed is a really hard character to write, in my opinion, it's not easy to write Reed. You have to really know your stuff to get Reed Richards right. People can do okay at it. Like DeFalco, I thought did an okay job. He wasn't great. I don't think he was terrible. He was fine. I would say JMS does a great read. And really, I mean, obviously the whole cosmic creature, whatever its name is, I forgot. I apologize. If he has a name.
I don't remember either.
Yeah, but it definitely felt like he really got a grasp of that character, and you see it throughout this whole run, and he really extends on this, what makes Reed tick as a character and what makes Sue and Reed tick, and I thought that was really interesting. And it's one of the first times I would say, despite even like some of the cool things he did with like making the thing a rich man, so to speak, which I always like that idea. The thing kind of takes a back seat a little bit in this run, which again, I don't really see it's a bad thing. I really felt like, besides the Hulk story, which we'll get to in a minute, I would say that this the Reed stuff, Reed gets the main thing, especially when the Civil War happens. So yeah, I think I love this. I love the whole mystic creature. It felt very much like the expanding on what makes the cosmic rays was really unique and interesting, like the spider totem stuff that I liked. I will say I did not like the whole like social worker, like taking the kids out. I was like, I don't know. That felt a little heavy-handed. I don't know. A lot of things they were going through. I was like, this wouldn't work on many different levels. But besides just the fact they'd have their kids in this, whole universe, whatever, you know what I mean. But that didn't do it for me as well. I thought that was a little contrived, a little too hard to like make the kids do something and have a little bit more of a dynamic. I appreciate the effort. Wasn't my thing, but it's a B story. I didn't really care about that. Like it didn't ruin it for me. I still love the rest of this a lot. So loved all this. The A story, A plus. B story, C minus.
Okay, yeah. Well, so I like the B story because that kept these characters grounded, because again, we're talking about the creation of the universe and all this kind of stuff, interdimensions, time travel,
Yeah, grounded.
and and this keeps us realizing that these are real people that we're talking about, that they are dealing with the same issues that real people deal with, alongside the more extreme issues that nobody else deals with. Um, oh yeah, right. Ghosts of the Super Apes. Forgot about that. And the
Dude,
UFOs. I'll have to look
I
that one
love
up.
the
Yeah.
UFOs. UFOs were part of the Hulk mythos, and they're very much like, in fact, I if I ever wrote a comic book for FF, the UFOs would be a part of it, just based upon exactly what Andy here is talking about. Yeah, I'm not sure how much you've read of the Hulk stuff, but if you read, I think Mantlo created the UFOs, I believe so, in his run,
Right.
which Mantlo's
Yeah.
Hulk run, chef's kiss. So
What I also really liked about that B story is how it concluded, because Reed and Sue are, they're fighting for their kids, and they know what's best for them, and they come up with a way to solve the issue that is that just proves that they are in the best place that they could be. And I thought that that was really, really clever, I guess. Um, just the way that that was
yeah,
executed. I like that.
it does end. I think it ends on a decent note, admittedly. Like I think to get there, it just wasn't doing it for me. But I do
Right.
like the
No, that's
ending.
fair. Well, and part of it is that it was drawn over 6 issues or whatever, so it just felt like, there is just an ongoing thing. That's just part of the nature of how the way these comics are written.
The business.
Um,
Yeah.
Now you said that it's hard to get Reed right when a writer has to write Reed, and I think the two defining characteristics for Reed that every writer needs to get in there is always obviously that he's intelligent, um, but he's not an egomaniac about it. So there's that. A modest, intelligent, a little bit disconnected. And then the second thing is
Mhm.
that he loves his family more than anything. So he's both not emotional when he's in regard to his intelligence and when he's trying to figure things out, but then super emotional when it comes to the people that he loves. And that shows up in this story, because all of his actions and everything he does is for the benefit of his family, including going and building that rocket in the first place. Because we find out at the beginning here, and I think this is actually held over from the Mark Waid story. The FF are broke; they have no money, they've lost it all,
Mhm.
and they're going to be kicked out of the Baxter Building or whatever. So there's that. One thing I found weird is that he gave Ben all of this money, but Ben and there's like so many zeros at the end that it wouldn't fit on a calculator, right? That's what it said. But Ben doesn't share any of that with Reed and Sue. He's like, I have all the money. Let's get us all out of this hole. Here you go. Here's just like 10% of my new wealth, and it'll solve the problem. But he doesn't do that. I thought that was kind of weird. But oh well. Okay, next story is the Hulk. The Hulk
Yes.
is I gotta remember this one. The Hulk is on a
Hydra.
rampage.
Well, he's helping Shield, which is also interesting because that's what he helped Shield with Daniel Way's intro to get him into the space for Planet Hulk. So it's helping Shield fight Hydra. Hydra has a gamma bomb, and it goes off. And
Right.
then he
And it
goes
turns him into in even because he's got his intelligence at this point in the story, but then it makes him go mindless and he tears apart Las Vegas. And the Thing is sent to stop him. The Thing and Johnny are both sent to stop him. But this is really the Thing's time to shine. And of course, who doesn't like the Thing versus the Hulk? That's just always a good time.
Classic.
Yeah, of course.
So
yeah.
This is again, this really shows you how clever JMS is, and this again, he brings us into, it feels like he ramped things up a little bit after with the whole like cosmic fight when the aliens show up and things get interesting and fun, and then with this, really again a really creative mind. I mean, JMS obviously he just knows how to tell a story. I mean, he wrote real Ghostbusters. Those first two, those first seasons he was on were incredible, still hold up to today, and what's crazy is this Hulk story is so unique because for those who don't know, and I'm a purist at heart. When Dan Slott had the Thing take on the Hulk and knock him out, I was like, oh, hell no. And to me, the best Hulk versus Thing stories for the most part, unless you're the Pinecone Thing, but for the most part is when the Thing he knows he's outmatched. He can't defeat him. He's got to outsmart him or figure something out. And I really enjoyed this because spoiler alert, I don't know about you, Curtis, but we all love a good Hulk versus Thing fight, even when Johnny isn't, helping out. And how he gets through to Hulk in this, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was like, wow, like JMS nailed this, and it was creative and different, and he does it by connecting him to his monstrosity, like the monster inside. And I know he kind of teased it up a little bit earlier in the series, when Ben's talking to himself in the mirror. And I don't know, I thought it was really clever how he did this. I'm not sure about you, but I was a little surprised, like, oh, it was fun, add action, whatever, but it was just a pretty well done, like little like 3-issue arc, in my opinion. I thought it was really well done.
It was. And whenever there's a Thing versus Hulk fight, you have to say what new and different, thing is being brought to the table here, because otherwise it's just retreading old material. Yeah, I saw this comment. Thanks, Andy, for clearing this up. There was a lot of overlap. In fact, I think it seems like he was writing these titles at the same time. I forgot that his run on Spider-Man was so long. And yeah, so yeah, there is quite a bit of overlap there. Yeah, so he leaves Fantastic Four before
His Spider-Man run.
Spider-Man, and I think it's kind of the same thing, but because I remember, and I remember now he did. J. Michael Straczynski was on Spider-Man through Civil War because he did those issues. That's right, and then that came after. Thanks for clarifying, Andy.
And maybe he was trying to also set up, because obviously the whole Thor hammer thing was set up for him to go write Thor. So maybe they kind of said, so maybe he knew he got Thor midway through, and he knew he was going to leave Spider-Man because these obviously are years in advance planning, so maybe he knew, like, because he wasn't going to be a part of Brand New Day. That was already evident, but he was wrapping up his run with One More Day, and then, like, obviously that went haywire completely. So. But,
okay, so so going back to this one, this is right before Civil War. We're going to talk about Civil War right after this Hulk story here. So I said you got to bring something new to the table, and so this one it ends with a conversation. You get a good deal of action and rampage and destruction and whatever. And Mike McKone is really great at all of
Good.
that action. But then when it comes down to it, the Thing decides he's going to try a more subtle approach and appeal to the monster inside and see if that makes a difference, and it does. And the conversation that they have at the end is really really great, and you can tell that Straczynski is not just a comic book writer, but he's a screenplay writer and he's a novelist, and that comes out greatly through all of the dialogue and through the narration caption boxes and everything like that. Like it's all really well thought out, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, this was a welcome surprise for me, and I love this cover. This cover is just, I think, is fantastic. McCone just
Yeah.
kills it. I mean, McCone is just such an efficient storyteller and cartoonist that it's really it baffles me. Like it's like when he does Spider-Man, it's like I wish he did more like stuff because he's just so effective. He's not flashy. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way by any means, but it's just so efficient, and it's like it gets the job done and does it well. And I just really appreciate getting all such great artwork from him. And he does the fantastical elements so well. It just I'm not sure what else he's doing. I know he's more of a DC guy. That's kind of what he cut his teeth on, I believe, before. But yeah, I absolutely love his art, and I love this cover. His Hulk, he's very apish, very ape looking face in the face Hulk, which is not uncommon, but it was a unique take, I thought, on the Hulk himself. Not maybe this rendition necessarily, but the other pages he did. But yeah, I thought this was great. A great story. So yeah, thumbs up all the way for me on this one.
So I think Mike McKone was actually a really good choice to bring in as the artist after Mike Wieringo, because Wieringo is a fantastic artist as well, and his work is definitely on the more cartoony side. He has way more cartoony facial features and such. And I think that McKone is actually a very similar style, not as cartoony. He brings more realism, but there's a lot in his posing, his compositions, and just the roundness and softness of the characters that reminds me of Rearingo as well. I think that they actually
Dude, word.
complement each other. Yeah.
100%. 100%. I knew you were going that way immediately because it feels like if he is a more realism Ringo. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. Ringo. But yeah, 100%. They definitely are like very in the same, almost in the same stratosphere as far as that goes. Very, yeah. I like both, but I tend to like my comics usually a lot more realism. Sorry, Rob, Sketchcraft. More of the exaggerated cartoony kind of feel. It depends on the title too, because I like Herberto Ramos, quite a bit. So it's not like I'm only realism only, but yeah, I tend to like
Well, and
more of those
realism is different from depending on who you talk to
subjective.
as well. Like Brian
Yeah,
Hitch, very realistic. Jack Kirby, some people say he's very realistic, but he's also extremely stylized and very
for
cartoony. So it's
sure.
like
Yeah,
but people like him because of his the realism that he brings to the title as well. But it's a different type
yeah,
of realism.
sure. All right,
Okay, so after this title, you want to move on to the next story here?
let's do it.
We just have a little, I think, is a two-part
Yep.
story where they are setting up the return of Thor, because after Dan Jurgens' long run on Thor, it ended with Ragnarok, and Thor had died. So currently there is no Thor. There's no Thor comic. There's no Thor character in the comics at all. So the hammer crash lands in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, is that right? And
Yep.
who and everybody it's this is where you get the scene from the Thor movie where everybody and their
Yep.
dog comes to try and pick up Thor's hammer in the middle of the desert, and lo and behold, who comes and picks up the hammer
Donald
is
Blake
Dr. Doom.
or
And
Donald Blake at the very end. Yeah.
yeah, and And so we get a great story of what it means to be worthy of power and such. And this story is to set up um, the new Thor title that J. Michael Straczynski does after Civil War. Did you like this
Yeah.
one?
Oh yeah, I
You
love
said this
this.
was the
This
first
is
stuff. This is the first one that you
yeah.
read.
When I got back into comics, it was right again, right? It was prelude to Civil War, and it was a great jumping on point for a lot of Marvel titles because you had Ed Brubaker going on Daredevil, which I started picking up. This, you had this going on, which is a road to Civil War. I told myself I'm going to buy all the Civil War tie-ins, and I started buying them, and then I got sucked into buying FF from here until the end of Hickman into James Robinson. Is that what happened? Yeah, whoever
Yeah.
or Bagley, then James Robinson. I think what happened.
Yeah,
So,
Bagley and Fraction.
Fraction, yeah, Fraction, which I don't want to talk about that run anyway. But unless you make me, that's the only way I'll do it if you make me, Curtis. Good God. No, but like I really enjoyed this because Doctor Doom is my favorite Marvel comic villain. He's one of my favorite villains of all time. I am a giant Doom guy, and I love me some Doctor Doom. I love him. He's just my favorite. I love how he's a villain, but you could write him kind of as a not anti-hero, but you can blur the line a little bit enough to where you kind of not root for him, but you're kind of rooting for. It's really interesting. He's such an interesting character, and thanks to all the great writers, right? And so whenever someone writes Doctor Doom, I'm always like, all right, let's get going here. And I think I thought JMS did a great job here. The Doom bots was a great, nice touch. And I do think Doom bots I do get tired of Doom bots after a while. I'm like, which one is Doctor Doom? It's like just
It's always a Doom bot. I know, yeah. Always.
it's that is probably my biggest criticism of every Doom writer. It's who not no, it wasn't Doctor Doom. It was a fake. It's like just stop it. Because whatever. That's small nitpick here. But they eventually had the real Doom show up. I love that he tries to pick it up and everything. And I don't know. It's a really fun little. It's a good 2-issue setup. For Civil War a little bit. But it's mostly to set up obviously JMS's Flora, which is great, which is hilarious that the movie is based upon basically the comic book too, because it starts off in Oklahoma, but this is what starts it off. I think it's hilarious that it's loosely based off the movie, or movies loosely based off this. So I think this is a fun 2 issues. Again, this got me back in reading FF on a regular basis, and that in Civil War, but this was the kind of made me kind of keep going, getting kind of caught up with everything.
So these 2 issues are at the start of the Thor Epic Collection, Modern Era Epic Collection. Yeah, Doom is getting his own
Wow.
Epic Collection soon, with all of his early Fantastic Four and other places. Like he appeared in a bunch of other books as well. So they're collecting all of those. Good morning, Partworks comics reader. Good to hear
Good
from
morning.
you.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah, this one was pretty good. For me, these 2 issues were the low point because it felt kind of disconnected from everything else. I like it in the context of Thor, but in the context of this overall run, I mean, it's not saying that this is a bad story, but I like the other stories better, if that makes sense.
That's fair. I like it because it's short and sweet, and it kind of it highlights to me, Curtis, why I love big continuity comic books like DC and Marvel is stuff like this. Is you can have Thor's hammer show up and it ties into something, it ties into a story coming down the line, but it's just like it takes place in Fantastic Four. I live for this stuff. Like I love that stuff. So I'm a sucker for it, but I can understand like because it is disjointed. It's kind of like here's a Doctor Doom story, not really. It's kind of an outlier. I feel like, to be honest, in my opinion, if let's say Civil War didn't exist, right? The story didn't exist, and JMS was allowed to tell something afterwards. I wonder how long this would have gone for, one, and two, if it is only 2 issues, let's assume it's just 2 issues still, like, or even 3, like it was for the Hulk story. Would it be what other, short stories would we have gotten afterwards to compare it to? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that to me is, I look at this as like it's a means to an end, but it's one of my favorite means to an end. But I could get where it's because it's kind of this kind of slammed in there, why it's not it's an abrupt kind of story, you could say.
I do always like it when Doom is put in his place, and not because of Reed, but just because of its own undoing. And so when he tries to pick up that hammer, I just love that scene and his reaction to it, because it's like, yeah, Doom, what were you expecting? Come on. His
Yeah,
ego got the
exactly.
better of him again. Was Joe on FF for long? I think only read an odd issue. What is this run? This run is 6, 7, 9,
Hold
10,
on.
11, maybe 15 issues or something like
Yeah,
that.
but we are you including the last two?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I think
Okay, all right. Is it
it's not very
15?
long at all. Let
Yeah,
me
it's
see.
it's not. Hold on. I have the issues right in front of me. I'll just throw them up. This is the first issue. This one right up. This one right here. Ah, this one right here. This is the first issue. So whatever, it's at 527. And then he went to, if you're right, it's 541. So that's the last JMS issue.
Yeah, 15 issues.
There you go, 15 issues. And it
Yep.
is it's a breeze, man. Like I read these pacing downstairs in my basement, getting steps in on my, and I have them all physically, but I read all, well, not all of them, the ones before. I don't have the other ones before, but I've read a ton of, a bunch of these physical already. And yeah, they're a good breeze, if you could say it. It's a good breeze for sure. But yeah, that first arc, the cosmic one's a little more heavier. But yeah, the rest of them are pretty fun, just kind of fun, quick issues, I'd say.
Totally. Okay, let's move on. This is called The Road to Civil War because Civil War actually isn't happening. It's just the banner they're using to hype the big event that's coming out. But the
Hype.
next issue is the very first issue of the Civil War tie-ins. And right at the very beginning of this one, we get a full page recap of what happens in Civil War #1 because part of the story really affects the Fantastic Four. Johnny Storm is beaten up and put into a coma, which, if you want to talk about contrived stories, like that is the most contrived. A bunch of regular Joes get the better of Human Torch and put him in a coma because he's a superhero. And everyone, because of the events that happen at the beginning of there's a big event, and no one likes superheroes at this time. And so, what's really fascinating about these Civil War tie-ins, and this kind of goes with all of the tie-ins, is that I always wonder, can you read these tie-ins without having read any of the main series at all? So the answer is yes and no. You do need to know
Yeah.
that starting thing, the Human Torch is in a coma. That spearheads the whole thing. But for the next 4 issues or so, you actually don't need to know at all what's happening in Civil War because the story is contained to just these issues here, to just Fantastic Four. And I really think that he did a really good job. Sounds about right for modern epics once we see those for Fantastic Four. Thinking Wade for a starting point on those. Yes. So yeah, I was thinking there's 12 issues of JMS, plus there's 2 Civil War issues by Dwayne McDuffie before he launches into his regular run that tie up JMS's run in total. So that would be 17 issues, the last one of which is a triple size issue. So that's a full epic right there, full 20 issue epic. But
For
yeah,
sure.
so you're talking that Thing gets the back seat for most of this run. He actually takes the forefront in this story here,
Yes.
because while Reed and Sue are having their own personal issues based on which side of the Civil War they fall on, Thing decides to just take a stand of his own, and he actually moves to France, and so he gets a big storyline um, to do with that. And um, what I love about these issues is that JMS is really good at telling at arguing both sides of the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oftentimes, writers will have their point of view or the thing that they want to tell, the story that they want to tell. But the point of Civil War is that there is no right and there's no wrong. Well, it's not that there's no right and no wrong. There is a wrong for sure. But these are heroes who have honest reactions to this situation. They're not evil people. So how are we going to portray them based on which side they're taking? And J. Michael Straczynski is really good at arguing for both sides of this thing. Reed's position going for the for the Superhero Registration Act, and then Sue's opinion against it, and then Ben's neutral opinion, and then Johnny, of course, is written out of this story because he's in a coma the whole time.
You're not wrong. He shows up at the end here. But yeah, I totally forgot that he was in a coma. I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, you're right. Because if you don't read Civil War, I totally did not know what's going on. I'm like, oh, that's okay, that's weird. But you're right. Once they get past that point, JMS does a great job of really showcasing, Reed versus Sue, and the Thing. And I really appreciated the Thing stuff because, there's a reason why he's neutral, basically, because he one of the Yankee Street Kid gang dies in one of their battles. And he's like, look at you idiots. You guys are causing more harm than good. And he's like, I don't take anyone's side. I'm out. And he goes to, to Paris, which he ends up helping those superheroes out, which, by the way, there's a hero in this that I'm like, they need to put this guy in the main series. It's a detective, Phantom
Detective. Yeah.
dude, I love that character. He looks so rad. I'm like, put him in the comics, man. He's great. If I was a writer, I'd be like, I'm gonna grab this guy. I'm gonna make him A-list. Anyway,
he's very similar to the Question in DC's The
right.
Question.
Right, but he's not. But he's got a cloud, and stuff. The cloud looks cool. It's a cool thing. I'm like, dude, use it, Marvel. No, but it's fun. Yeah, the Civil War issues. We talked about how seamless it was from McDuffie to JMS. When I read the last two issues, I'm like, well, you told me they were by not by JMS. I'm like, I didn't even notice, but
yeah. So I think that there was some editorial stuff being thrown into the Civil War story, like he was with Spider-Man as well. Is like all of a sudden now he has to cater his writing and his story to the big event, and I don't think he's happy about that. And so he left abruptly right in the middle of the Civil War thing. So there's I think 3 issues or maybe 4 issues, I can't remember, of JMS doing Civil War, and then Dwayne McDuffie takes over for the last 2 issues. Still Mike McCone doing the art, but Dwayne McDuffie has to wrap up JMS's run. Basically, he has to bring to a close all of the running threads that JMS had been building throughout his run there. And like you said, he does it seamlessly. Like if you didn't know, you would have no idea that it was a different person writing. Like he does a really, really good job. And one of the funniest things is that he gets rid of get rid of Thing's wealth, like just in a sentence, like it's gone, like because we made a big deal about the fact that he's stinking rich and he's buying tuxedos or whatever, eating at fancy restaurants, and then the Hulk story comes and they never talk about that wealth ever again. They don't talk about it through the Hulk thing. They don't talk about it through the Doom storyline. They don't talk about it through Civil War. And then right at the end, Dwayne is putting all the pieces back in the sandbox and finds a way to take away that that wealth and then reset his character back to the way it was before. And of course, he brings Human Torch back out of a coma, so it resets that character back to the way he was before. And his run is notable. Dwayne McDuffie's run is notable because he includes Black Panther and Storm as 2 members of the Fantastic Four. So he finds a reasonable way that relates to the story so that Sue and Reed can step out of the picture and make way for his new version of the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, Dwayne McDuffie, rest in peace, just a great comic writer. And this, I thought this was a very inspired idea, to be honest. like you said, I don't know if that was purposeful or if he was able to take kind of what JMS was doing and use Civil War to do this already, but it was brilliant, and he did a great job of ending his run, whether it be that was planned or not. I have no idea. Either way, JMS had, and Mike McCone, they had a great run, a pretty solid, I'd say solid to a good run on this team book. And Dwayne McDuffie takes it and does something totally unique with it afterwards. And, and I'm not saying we should do this one next, Curtis, but it is cool to see someone take the idea of the Fantastic Four and kind of turn it on its head, like Englehart did, right? With, with the Things and Crystal and Human Torch. So, yeah, I mean, but to talk about the run here, it just felt natural. It felt very much like it made sense to bring these two characters in post Civil War and everything, and give Sue and Reed some time to repair and work on their relationship, which is normal. That's a normal, and again, that a normal thing that it seems like JMS was really building in his run of, marriage problems, having, people talk about, we can't write marriage, we got to make Spider-Man single. It's like, this is a great example, amongst other great stories of married people. Curtis, believe it or not, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, right? Oh my God, you can write married people? It's insane. But like, great example of showing, and granted, it's Sue and Reed, but a great example in superheroes, you can write, two characters can be married, you can create drama and conflict and not have them be on the verge of divorce or whatever. But
except this story.
right. But like the thing is, you can create conflict and distrust in marriages, and it happens naturally, and there can also be resolved, believe it or not. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was really cool how we were able to get that family dynamic in this, the JMS and the Civil War issues that I kind of forgot about a little bit. And as I was with my wife now, but I was dating my wife at the time when I was reading this, I didn't really appreciate it as much. And reading it now, it made me appreciate it even more. And I was really impressed with how he was able to really, I think, orchestrate a really good marriage story between two people. So yeah, I think this run was really, really, really well done. I wouldn't say it's a highlight of the series, but it's definitely worth checking out. If you love the FF and you haven't taken it out yet, it's a short run, but it does a lot of good stuff. And I think the biggest thing I'll take away from my closing thoughts here, Curtis, would be the character work for everyone. Even the Human Torch, again, he gets even more of a backseat than everyone, it feels like. I would say the character work that he does is so good in this, and everyone feels exactly right. No one feels like out of place to me. So, or out of character, which is very easy, I feel, in these stories. Yeah, I think he just nails everyone really well. And I love the idea of expanding on their origin a little bit. I think that was brilliant. And I wish he could have done even more with it. And maybe he would have if he had more time, but maybe I think someone else should pick up the pieces, because I think there's more to tell here with that character and everything.
Yeah. I want you to throw up Andy's comment that he just did
Sure.
here. Reed really comes across as hypocritical during Civil War with his obey the law because it's the law stance when he stole a rocket. So, and then the next comment, he says, and the whole story about his uncle being wrong for standing up to unjust authority is such hogwash. And I agree with you, Andy. He had some very terrible reasons for being on which side of the Civil War he was on. Now, I wonder if this is one of the reasons why that JMS left, because it was probably dictated by who did Civil War? Brian Michael Bendis. No, Mark Miller. It was Mark Miller, right?
Yeah, Mark Miller. Yeah, Mark Miller.
Yeah, it was probably dictated by Mark Miller that Reed was going to be on Iron Man's side. And so then JMS and everybody has to kind of go along with the flow here. So, and because JMS didn't write the conclusion to the story, we don't know how he would have wrapped it up. I'd love to ask him that question at some point. What was your trajectory with Reed? How would you have wrapped that story up? And Dwayne McDuffie, on those last 2 issues, when he's wrapping up the story, makes Reed do an about face and comes up with the story of like, oh, I couldn't tell anybody this in reality, but I had ulterior motives, and it was all to protect my family and stuff. And so he backpedaled a little bit on that to try and keep
It worked though.
but it did. Yeah. It was
worked
just fine.
Yeah, in
It
fact,
ended up.
I would.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, you say it. Go ahead.
I really do think I agree with you. Because I think Andy's on their money and you're on the money too. I will say the Mad Thinker stuff which I thought was JMS was McDuffie. I thought that was beautifully orchestrated because that made a lot more sense to like where it felt like he couldn't even tell Sue. Why would he tell Johnny? Right? When he's telling Johnny that story, because he's telling Johnny, I believe, the whole uncle story. It makes a lot more sense to me when he brings the Thinker in and then Sue's eavesdropping on him. Like that to me made a lot more sense, and it tracks a lot better for me as he's orchestrating everything. I thought was actually pretty brilliant move, my opinion. But
yeah, which we know that's part of Reed's character is orchestrating stuff even behind the scenes when he can't tell people, and like he's part of the Illuminati at this time, like that the Illuminati story's going on, and he's a big part of that. So of course, yeah, he's breaking the law left and right, and they always do. So why is he taking this stance? And I think part of that is it's just contrived because it's Civil War, but I think Reed redeems himself in the end thanks to Dwayne McDuffie and gives a legitimate reason, and that is the catalyst for a legitimate reason why Reed and Sue have to step off the team for a little while, and so it all works toward this next run that's coming up here. It all works well together.
Yeah, I think this, again, I think this is a pretty solid run. I liked it. It's again not my favorite, obviously, but I mean the FF has some historic. I mean, Byrne, Lee Kirby, whatever. But yeah, I think this next run's not bad. It's been a while. One day we'll have to read it. But yeah, it's been a minute. I remember reading this one and Black Panther like simultaneously, and it was a lot of fun. I had a great time reading it back in the day. So, did you read this? Have you read this before? I'm assuming you have.
I have, yes, I have. It's been a long time, and I don't remember much of it, so I'd have to revisit it.
Yeah, exactly. So I know you got to get out here real quick.
Even read. So I love that. I have no idea. I don't remember. I haven't tracked when these characters were all kidnapped or whatever, but I'm sure that JMS was writing under the assumption that it wasn't a Skrull. So I think we should take that at face value.
Yeah, no, totally. So Curtis, I want to ask, we talked a little bit loosely on our next adventure for FF. Should we start at the beginning? Should we do the whole Lee Kirby? I'll leave it up to you. You want to talk about it later? We can, but if you want to say yes, we can do that. It's up to you. What are you thinking?
Yeah, we could talk about the early days for sure. I don't think we should talk about all 102 issues in one.
Oh no. We should do it by epic. I was thinking we could do by epic. So like, do
sure.
Epic 1. Right, because admittedly, I have not read all of the run, so I'm excited to dig deep. So
let's do it. So you want to start at the very, very beginning? Go back to number 1. Okay.
Hold on.
Yep.
Got it right here for us. So
that's the first 20 issues, right?
Yeah, first 20 in first. Yeah, 1 through 18. 1 through 18.
First 18 issues. Perfect. Let's do it.
So those who are following, we are going with Epic 1. And we'll go from there and see what happens. But I'm excited because I love the FF. Love doing these shows with you. So before we get out of here, are there any? This is a blast. And again, we kicked it in an hour. We're awesome. So anything you want to promote before we do? I know you did a live stream yesterday, I believe, correct?
I do live streams on Mondays afternoons to talk about new epics that have and DC Finest that have just come out, plus whatever else I happen to have sitting on my desk. And yeah, you can find me there over on the Epic Marvel Podcast YouTube channel, which some of you are watching from right now because I have simulcasted this to my page as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks again for having me on, Paul. It's always a pleasure being here. I love having these conversations with you.
Yeah, I know. We have the FF in common, which is great. So we're gonna get out of here. So everyone, please subscribe, like all that stuff. Curtis, you have a great night. Everyone,